Okay, it's another Monday. Look at these Twilight zones. Now I did gut that third wheel that was sitting over here. That was just basically the carcass of the base game for the production game. And I had to go through all the parts. I spent the whole weekend actually just organizing stuff and getting everything in order. I rebuilt all the mechs. So over there on the shelves, you probably can't see it that well from here, but over there on the shelves, everything's ready to go. It's all the wiring harnesses for both games. It's all the plastics and the ramps and the subways and all the mechs and the aprons and just it's everything, and every single thing is ready to go for both games. Everything is done except for what you see right here on the top shelf. That's it. So these slide brackets, these aren't anything to worry about. I gotta tell you, I've seen people have these chrome plated. I've seen people powder coat them, and it's foolish because as soon as you start to slide it, all that shit's gonna be chipping off. These you want to just kind of keep a nice industrial finish on them. I'll clean them. I'll probably hit them with a Scotch-Brite and clean them up, make sure they're pretty good. But that's about all you want to do here. And you actually want to grease these before you put them back into the cabinet so they have a nice slide about them. This thing of trying to turn every little single thing into a chrome plated showpiece is very foolish. Very foolish. I don't do it, and I don't recommend it. All right, so that leaves us with these items: gumball machines, clocks, and mini playfields. Well, I'm going to take these mini playfields and I'll just take them out of the equation right now because I can't build these mini playfields until I sand and polish the mini playfields, and I don't want to sand and polish the mini playfields until I sand and polish the real playfields. So as a result, these are not crucial to me right now. We'll get around to it, but we don't need to be sidetracked with that yet. All right. Okay. Starting to break some of this stuff down. I just want to get things in a little bit of order before I start dealing with it here. This one's got a broken lead. I'm just going to take both of them. I got one of them apart, but I'm going to take both of them apart. Get everything separated. Not too much to one of these. There is an important way to order a business, and most of the time these little ears are broken on them. This one's got one broken ear, two broken ears, but usually I just put a washer on there. It's fine. I think they make replacements, but I don't need one. Those little broken tabs aren't a problem for me. This one, broken tab there. Take this Geneva off of here. Rack it off. All right, so there's the motors and the screws. It's the brackets. Those, I'll put these over here. Leave this together for a minute. Base. Take this lid off and I'll open this up in a container under here. All right, there those are. I'll take this handles off of them too. All right, that's all the pieces to that. I'll leave the switches on there for now, just so I can wash the blades good, but I'll rewire all this stuff. I probably won't replace the switches as long as they're good. These are a little bit different than the regular micro switches you get. If you look, the actuator button is this kind of brown color, and it's got a bit more tension on it, so a little bit stiffer. And so you can put a new regular style micro switch on there and it'll work, but this is a better switch as long as it's working. So in other words, a replacement isn't really an upgrade in this regard. This thing's a piece of shit. Set this right in the trash. Like somebody, looks like somebody fed that thing to a shark. All right, let's see. Okay, let's grab this other bin. And I'll put the metal over here. We're going to clean that differently when we clean the plastic. I'll put all the plastic stuff in here. Alright, we got these gumballs. I'll pour these gumballs in a cup and I'll put the metal in a different container. I think I'll probably use it there. Put the metal in here. Screws in there too. Now, while I got the metal in here, what I'm going to do, I'll probably repack these with grease. And that'll be it. You know, if you have a problematic motor, what you can do is drill the rivets out and split the case and really go through each gear. But Twilight Zone, I don't really find myself doing that with these. It's a real low use motor. It barely turns. It just has a small little bit of rotation in it every so often. But when you get into these games like Circus Voltaire or Doctor Who, where this thing's lifting and lowering an entire playfield, or that whole mechanism for the ringmaster, that's a high-use motor, and you definitely do want to drill those apart, split the gearbox, and really go through it. But a waste of time and effort on a Twilight Zone, or any of these motors with this real small use, even like Indiana Jones, Path to Adventure, those kind of motors. Usually don't have to get that deep. If anything, a lot of times it's the motor itself you have to replace. I don't think we're going to have any problems here. But gearboxes hold up pretty good, and they're usually pretty well packed with factory grease. Now I'm going to take this degreaser and just kind of spray all this stuff and try to get some of this, because that's what's on here is grease. This isn't a wash with soap and water type situation. It can be after you degrease it, but for right now, we want to get all these oils off of everything. So I'm just kind of let this stuff sit for a little bit with that, and then we'll go wash these plastic parts. Then we'll come back and we'll wipe this stuff really well with a clean paper towel, dry it off, blow it off with a little bit of compressed air, probably take the motors out, pack some grease in there, put them back together, rewire them, and this stuff will be in good order. While this is soaking though, we'll do the plastic stuff. Now when you do one of these Twilight Zone restorations, if you don't clean the inside of this gumball machine, you're going to be picking up a whole lot of dirt, because these things are embedded with it, and this is where a lot of it's going to come from, no matter what else you clean. Pretty much same process for cleaning everything. Spray soap. I'm gonna spray that fucking bee. This thing better get away from me. Here it is. I will fuck one of these things up. I have no sympathy when it comes to that. I'm to be left alone out here. And oh, he got out of here. Yeah, you spray one of those things with soap, it probably doesn't kill it, but it stops flying, I can tell you that. Doesn't bother me one bit. I'm not bothering it. I'm going to be left alone out here doing my thing. Looking around, man, I saw this. Oh, it's got to be at least 6.5 foot long. Big old king snake. It was laying on my ramp the other day. And every time I hear something rustle in the bushes now, I'm on edge. I know it's not poisonous, but it's a big fucker. Okay, let's start putting this stuff together. Let's start with the motors and the switches. I need to rewire this stuff. Over here. Turn this on. And I like to up the gauge on these. I mean, it doesn't need a heavier gauge, but a heavier gauge is just more solid. So we'll go, this is probably 20 gauge, maybe 22. We'll go to 18. On the switches, we'll stick with what's normal, but we'll figure out what's color correct. And I will straighten out these leads and get everything looking nice, but I do plan on reusing these switches because you can hear the tension in that. If you listen closely, you can hear that tension, and it's a much different tension than you get on this. This is like a lot lighter action. All right. Let me grab my clippers and strippers. I just went black and red wires, nothing fancy. That's what they had. Should be enough to do both. Alright, I'll handle the motors first and then we'll do the other ones. Alright, as far as the motors go, let me take the motor off and I'll just put some grease in there. Try to make sure I keep it in that orientation. Let me get my grease. Alright, squirt of it in there. Fill it up with that. Okay, so we got that packed full of grease. Put a rotation on it. Let me pull this out of this connector. I'm going to replace these wires. But for now, I'll just use them to spin it. Get a little bit of that grease worked in there. I'll put the red on there and the black on there. Just work some of that grease in there. right, that was good. Now I'll rewire it. I like to put a nice solid bit of solder on there. Alright, that's good and solid. Looks good. Now I'll put something over the leads so we don't have to worry about them breaking. Slide this clear tubing over each one of these leads. And then I'll cross them together like that. Cross them together like this. And zip tie it that way. Get this as tight as I can, that way the tubing can't move off of there. Okay, now this is like you can swing this thing around, you can do anything you want to, and you're not going to break those wires off that lead. And that's important because, as you can see, what was already happening, shit's breaking off there because it's half-assed put together. And we'll extend this as far as this wire will go. I mean, whatever the shortest lead is that's left on here, we'll make the length of it that length. Now these, could push these in. I think I might just push these into this connector. Let me just make sure I get the order right. It's like the red goes right here. It's a little bit thicker wire. Alright, we did that. See if I got a good way to test. Let me test this and make sure that they're making a good connection. Black one. Okay, that's good. Gotta make sure the wires are seated in the connector. Alright, there's one motor ready to go. See how that works? Okay, put it over here to the side. I'll go ahead and do the switch bracket. I'll do the same thing to the other motor in a minute, now that you know how that goes. Now let's do the switch bracket next. So first things first, we're missing a screw. See that? We're missing a screw. And these wires are pretty much no good. I'll put a new screw in there in a minute. So banded end goes to the rear blade here. And it should be good. As far as the screw goes, let's see. And if you want to crank one of these down, you gotta be careful because it's plastic, but you crank the front one down. Don't crank this back one down. You crank this back one down, that's gonna be what makes it sticky. Seems good. I feel confident about it. Alright, let's see what color wires go to this. I know there's green wires. Consult the manual. Probably the operator's manual will be fine. Let's see. Switches. stove, solenoid, lamps. We go switches. It's going to be 55 right here, I believe. 55. So we're looking at 5. That's green and black. And we're down 5. White and green. Gumball Geneva. So it's white and green and black. 5, 5. So we're going over 5 and we're going down 5. Okay. Got it. The green and black goes to the center lug. No, if I'll be able to get this in there. It's already been soldered on once, so yeah, we got it in there. That's that. And green and white wire will go to the non-banded side. See if we can rig it on there to cooperate. Try to keep the heat to a minimum on these. Trim this off. All right, now that looks pretty good. I'm going to take a little piece of clear tubing like this and slide it over the center lug, because these do get bent pretty easily, as we can see from our old example. See that? And see, when this bends together like this, as soon as those things touch, now you've got a short. You've got a game doing things it shouldn't do. So we'll slide this on there to avoid that. Now, even if that bends, nothing can touch that lead. That cannot be done. Now, beyond that, we'll put a little bit of shrink tube on a length of it just to protect the wires, because we saw how those were breaking. Because when I'm doing this work and I'm wearing this thing, I can't keep changing the camera setting. All right, there we go. And I like this for the length of it. Let me get right here. Put that to the side. Go ahead and put this on the connector. That. We'll give it a new connector, because that one looks pretty dirty. Alright, and there's this, right? So now we got this. It's short protected. It's wired color correct. It's got good tension on it. New connector. The wiring is somewhat protected going through there, and then it's got a decent plug. And this is what we had before, which, you know, if you know what you're looking at, that's a couple upgrades in one. You had shorts that were going to happen, you had no protections at all, and you didn't have much real estate to work with. So little stuff like that, it adds up. I mean, you're doing this over the course of a whole machine, and then there is our gumball setup as far as that goes. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to these, and then I'll come back on when I'm ready to assemble the actual gumball machine. All right, let me give you an assembly demonstration on this, because it is important how this goes together. If you want this to always return back to that flat position, which you do, so when it turns and dispenses the gumball, or pinball actually, you want it to rotate and come back to this flat position. In order for that to happen, you need to make sure that you have it in that position before you start to assemble it. So I've got it in that position, and I'm holding it. I'm holding it in that position. Now I'm going to put the globe on there, because that's what has to go on next. Now this is where it's kind of important. If you look closely, you'll see these notches. It's got 4 notches in it. They're basically in little quarter portions, right? So quarter, quarter, quarter before you get to the whole thing. So these notches need to line up perfectly with the sides and the front. So if that notch is pointing straight towards the handle and those other two notches are lined up perfectly with the edges of the housing and the final notch is pointing straight back at you, then you have it in the right position. And at that point you will also want to make sure that that handle is flat. That's going to be what dictates where this thing goes when it lands, or where it finishes when it rotates is what I want to say. I gotta fish this on here. I'll probably turn it around a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I got this in that position. I'm gonna get it where I want it before I finalize things and push it together. Okay. And it's real easy to just be off a tooth or two. Okay, now let's look at this closely. You see that notch? See that notch over there, and that one's pointing back. As long as we see that and this handle is flat, then it's in the right position. So it won't be until then that you want to install the motor. Here comes the motor. You don't want it to move while you're doing that, or else it'll be in the wrong spot. As a matter of fact, I think this is off just a tooth now from doing that. Okay, I'm going to reset it again. And I'm talking one tooth here. Alright, I got it just where I want it again. Let me slide this on. Okay, I don't want this to move. Put the second part of the globe on. Then I'll put the second part of the housing on. Sure everything's still where I want it. I'm looking for my notches and make sure everything's where I want it. There we go. That needs to come down a little bit. Alright, there's that. I'll go ahead and put the lid on it just to help hold it all together for a minute while I get the screws in there. And don't crank this stuff down, it's plastic. Okay, there that is. Now there's always a little bit of play in here, so it's not that it's not lined up, but you know, it can just by play move a little bit one side to the next. But there that is. This is fully assembled. It's ready to go. That's a complete gumball machine. So let's see what we have. Let me pull the other one out and we'll put them both up. Alright, here we go. One with gumballs, one without. The one with gumballs, I'm heavy on the white gumballs because they match the Powerball best. So I just like that look. It looks a little bit cleaner when the Powerball's in there to have a little bit more of a white presence in there. So one with gumballs, one without. Gumball machines are done.